Fellow Kenyans, why did our founding fathers choose Uhuru Gardens as the place to celebrate Independence Day in 1963 and the Republic status in 1964? Why did they want generations to memorize about our history? Apart from being a place of remembrance and healing, this place will be an arena where the past, the present, and the future will converge.
Our beautiful national flag went up to replace the Union Jack forever.
There were a lot of people, and you couldn't say that there was one person or two persons who were against what was happening, the British flag coming down and the Kenya flag going up.
The round where we're sitting goes dark. It's dark, it's black. And then the spotlight shines on the Union Jack. And you see that Union Jack coming down with a spotlight on it, you see. You're just mesmerized, because you realize that the symbolism of what's happening with the raising of the Kenya flag, it's an irreversible feature, and it's a long-awaited feature.
The whole of the people who are celebrating the independence, singing the national anthem, and knowing that I was one of the participants who were in the composition of the national anthem was overwhelming.
And now it only remains for me to present to you, Mr. Prime Minister, these constitutional instruments which establish Kenya's independence.
Hiki ni kitabu cha kusema wananchi wa Kenya wote wako huru. Wananchi wa Kenya wote wanaishikilia serikali yao kwa mikono yote miwili, mtu akitaka asitake, ni yetu sisi.
Uhuru Gardens was chosen. If you look at Langata Road, it is dotted with various places where the former freedom fighters, specifically the Mau Maus, were enumerated. The declassified information that we got through the cabinet members also stated that the celebration for the freedom should be in a specific place where the freedom fighters would feel this is now the place where we are going to enjoy our freedom after a long period of humiliation.
1963 marked a very important time of coming together of the peoples of Kenya, the unity that had been disrupted by the colonialism. It was agreed that it was not going to be so difficult to create a nation out of these diverse groups which had been exacerbated by colonialism, the principle of divide and rule.
Preserving our history is very, very important as a country. The first president of Botswana, Mr. Kame, saying that a country without a history is a country without a soul.
A country without memory has no future. The National Archives was established after independence in 1965. Many other countries in this region got their registrations much later, but our government realized the importance of having an archives. The colonial government did not have a very coherent policy on the management of our documentary heritage. And you'll also realize that quite a number of those records were also destroyed, sometimes inadvertently and sometimes deliberately. The issue of the migrated archives was paramount. And actually, the first effort was made in 1967, when the government of Kenya wrote to the Prime Minister in the UK requesting to get those records back, even if it meant copies.
The date for independence had been fixed, and a site was being cleared for a new stadium near the edge of the Nairobi National Park.
Prior to 1963, Uhuru Gardens was already a memorial park, and the idea was in 1966, it was now fully gazetted as a national memorial park. These areas were meant for memory, celebrations, and reflecting on the Kenyan identity as a nationhood. And some of the things that happened with the first president is that he planted a mugumo tree, itself having significance for the African culture. When the second president of the country took over, President Moi, 2 new monuments were put. So in 1983, the 20th celebration of Uhuru was placed, and this is one of the key icons, this big spire-like tall structure. 5 years later, the 25-year monument was put, which is really a very nicely built water fountain with lighting, part of history of the Kenya being explained in there. In 1997, towards December, the whole place was re-gazetted. The 65 acres of the Uhuru Gardens was then re-gazetted as national monument until 2003, when the National Museums of Kenya was undergoing a major reform, including reforming its own legislation that put up the National Museums of Kenya. And at that time, the third president of the country, His Excellency Mwai Kibaki, had taken over. And they were very keen on the history, and they were very keen on sites and monuments, and most importantly, they were very keen on honoring the national heroes and heroines. From the task force report, we put up a cabinet memorandum and a policy paper and a draft bill on how heroes and heroines should be honored. When the 2010 Constitution was unveiled, after the first sentence that honors and acknowledges the supremacy of God, the Almighty, the next actually statement in that preamble is that we are honoring those who struggled heroically for the freedom of this country. And then it says we honor again the diversity of the cultures, religion of the people of Kenya. And then finally, respecting the environment of the country. Down the line, the National Museums of Kenya Heritage Act also came into being. That gives a lot of strength to the government and the people of Kenya to take care of their national heritage. Finally, the national heroes and heroines, which was approved during President Mwai Kibaki's time, became an act of parliament in 2014 during the fourth President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. The 50th anniversary was actually celebrated on these grounds, and His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta addressed the nation from the Uhuru Gardens at midnight, where now Kenya at 50 was celebrated, and he gave further directions that this memorial park needs to be built.
We have been extremely fortunate
to be entrusted really to be part of this process for the last 10 years of transforming this hugely significant place into a modern, into a 21st century civic district that celebrates every facet of our being as the Kenyan people.
The project, it has this layer of history and this layer of the Kenyan spirit. It comes from being a site where the Union Jack came down and the first flag of independent Kenya went up. So from this history and from subsequent significant moments like those, it becomes not just a park, but something with a higher responsibility. You're designing for people to appreciate where they came from, what their stories are, but you're also trying to do it somewhat in their voice, in our own voice as Kenyans. Some of our history has been quite difficult and quite painful. I think that acknowledgement is that first step to reconciling with this all and trying to build, a better day tomorrow. The bit that really connects to our history quite significantly is the landscape exhibition. So the landscape exhibition is a series of installations with quite a bit of artistic license. We're having a series of artists work on these installations, and each installation delves a bit into a certain aspect of our history, us as a people, or connection to the struggle, connection to independence, or a connection to even our current culture and how it's tied to our pre-colonial culture.
The National Museums of Kenya today has a collection of 11 million, which is both cultural and also natural. These collections have a lot of meaning for the country, and this is why maybe even what we are doing at Uhuru Gardens today is an opening for further things that are to come in terms of showcasing what Kenya has. The Kenyan flag that was raised in 1963 is just one among the 11 million. This is the flag that actually identifies the history of where we've come from in terms of colonialism and then moving forward. The first constitution and the pen are a symbol of what our pride is and what we are as a people and what we've gone through and where we've come from and maybe what we aspire to be in the future. So for us to have those items with us, it means then that history can never be erased.
It's a very significant project. It's a project that will give a sense of national entitlement, national pride. It's a project that will help sort out some of the issues that we are dealing with as a country. It's a project that is 360 degrees addressing matters to do with culture, matters to do with the nature, and matters to do with history. It's a cocktail of all that put together and told in a common fabric. It's important to realize that if we didn't do this, it meant that 20 years down the line, there's some of these things that could have been eroded or done away with.
All we are really is our heritage and how we preserve and cherish it. I foresee this project playing
a very central role in not only collecting, but also restoring and preserving our material culture, our intangible culture, our heritage for posterity.
It's a symbol of our nationhood. It was the one thing that always would pull us together. That's when we became part of the community of nations. So it has a very special place in our history, in our souls, in our hearts, and should always portray the best, the best that we have, the best of our culture, of our heritage, of our creativity, of our innovation, our aspirations and our hopes for now, for the future.
Renewing and improving our civic district, our sacred place as a people, has brought in the entire government working in a very coordinated way under the leadership of the Kenya Defence Forces, who are the primary protectors of our sovereignty. This project is about protecting the sovereignty of the peoples of Kenya. And I think it is apt, it is right that the Kenya Defence Forces is leading the entire government to realize this for the people of Kenya.